Well, it might surprise you to find out that there's a lot more issues in effect than just the current one that's been brought to everyone's attention whenever Netflix tried to make a documentary about Cleopatra and she turned her into a West Sub-Saharan Bantu, and some didn't even notice. Of course, many didn't watch it, but they also tried to turn all of the Egyptians into West Sub-Saharans, and they had some people that looked like the current population there, but they were just the help. They even turned Ptolemy, Cleopatra's father, into a Bantu person and tried to act like this was a documentary. And that's raised a lot of problems, and the Greeks aren't happy at all, and Egypt's not at all either. In fact, when Kevin Hart said that they were the Egyptians, they told him not to come from his concert and gave him all his ticket money back and stuff. And from what I understand now, that movie is blocked in Egypt and actually in all of the MENA region, which is Mediterranean, Egypt, and Near East, because they're not going to play the game that these people like to play. In fact, did you know that they attempt to claim everything except for themselves? It would start to get comical to find out that they've claimed that they're the Vikings. And we recently had a show where they did the Vikings, and somehow they took one of the old Viking men that's well known and turned it into a black woman. No understanding is given on how this could have possibly happened. That she just popped up like popcorn, just one sticking up like a sore thumb. It's become a pandering game of late. And a lot of them feel entitled whenever they see things like Wakanda, or they see something like whites pandering to them and taking the new live action Little Mermaid and taking Ariel, the pale redheaded girl, and turning her into a Bantu again. But she had red hair, and wow, she must have gone to the salon or something here to get this going on. Well, that girl's quite admixed also. But there's an issue with this, and I've shown a recent video talking about cargo cults and how this explains some of the mentality to it, but it's gotten rampant. If you think it's not rampant, now they've decided, well, this is not new. They've been doing this for a little while too. As soon as they heard there was a tribe called the Blackfeet people, they all of a sudden thought, well, we were never slaves, were we? We were always here in America. I want you to take a listen to this.
Indigenous black people have been in the Americas for thousands of years before slavery and Christopher Columbus. In Columbus's own diary, his son Ferdinand Columbus confirmed that his father did in fact meet black tribes upon reaching the New World.
Well, in actuality, what he did notice is that he was expecting to run into South India, hence the names Indians. And so when he showed up and he saw there were some lighter tribes, which were like the Aryans that had run India and mixed in the northern part of it, and running into the islands of the Caribbean, which is where he was, he found a people there living off canoes and stuff, like the Taino, I believe. Anyhow, so one is cannibalizing the other and stuff and oppressing him, and he actually tried to help them out. But that's not the story given here. The story given here is that he showed up and there were Negroids there, or apparently they're trying to get you to believe there were West Sub-Saharan Bantu people here. It's really disgusting, you know, and there's the show that was done by Gates here not too many years ago, and it tried to show people their heritages and go back, because a lot of people, including Caucasians, can't go past their great-grandparents or so on, and they're lucky if they can, and then they get a family name and try to attach it to somebody in the old world. So they've done this with black people too, and a lot of the things involved DNA testing. And one of the things Gates wanted to show in one of the shows was that a lot of black people try to claim that they've got an Indian in their family, and that's where they get that good hair from. It straightened out their nappy hair somehow, because Indians have perfectly straight hair. And so you really couldn't claim them as being a black people, no matter what color their skin is. But you see, blacks are hung up on skin color extremely bad. So they've tried to claim anybody that's darker than a sheet of paper, regardless of how dark tan that a redneck gets out farming. So here they claim they were here in the Americas before, and this is nothing new too. They've also tried to claim the Olmecs, because they had braids on their hair and stuff. Like they're the only people that ever had braids, when we found braids in Caucasian type people going back like 30,000 years and so on. So it's people that started to braid and make rope. It's a practice for that or anything, but that's where you get cornrows from. And of course, cornrows are mimicking a farming type of thing. So there's all of this that goes on that makes it invalid, but they are desperate to try to tell you that there were some black people in Americas before. Whether this has all been totally exposed or not, believe it or not, they keep coming out with this like it's brand new. Did you know? And if you'll look at what people are saying on the right side here, it says they're indigenous to the whole planet. A people that were only from a very small area of sub-Saharan Congo, far West Africa, due to an identity crisis they're trying to have, regardless of if they already know the way that it was. They seem to be desperately steering away from themselves and pointing at everybody. In fact, in a minute, he's going to claim Ethiopia here in a moment, just because they apparently have black skin too. And so that must mean we were here too, because someone said they look like Ethiopians. Let's get to that.
Explorers like Giovanni Verrazzano, when he got to the Carolinas, he met the Cape Fear Indians, who he said resembled the Ethiopians of Africa.
I guess it was right there next. Yeah, so Ethiopians of Africa have so much admix in them that they actually have a Caucasian phenotype, and their black portion of their genetics are actually totally separate from West Sub-Saharan Bantus, and are the Khoisan with the click language and stuff, are the Pygmies, and so on. And people have even done genetic tests between the Dinka and so on that are all through the Horn of Africa, and Somalians and everything, and found the variation on a theme there. Egyptologist 7 has a lot of videos where it'll show you the variations of it and what they have found there, and about how long they think that event happened at. But so he looked like the Ethiopians of Africa to explorers, but that would probably not much different to the people of South India, which Herodotus and all the people back in the day, and using their maps and stuff, showed that there were Ethiopians there too. But then if we track down the origin of Ethiopia, it never was referring to that at first. In fact, it's in the Iliad and the Odyssey and stuff, and they show people all over the place that are referred to as that. And now we're talking about farmers, who they considered a different class of people than the city dwellers. This is like the little story of the mouse and so on like that. But farmers, not being so advanced, they don't have that city life. You can imagine a New Yorker thinking about this to somebody that lives in rural Nebraska. Let's continue.
Explorers like Hernando de Soto, when he got to Florida in 1512, he started warring with the Florida Indians, who he described as big, black, and had woolly hair.
I'm not familiar with this exact example he's trying to give here. I'd be willing to bet you a large amount of money that the man never said woolly hair, because I don't know if you're aware, but Indians have the straightest hair on the planet. They can't even get it to curl. If they have any admix, they'll start deviating out of that. Just like blacks will have that tight, coiled, trico type of hair. And it takes a lot and a good portion of admix and a little bit of luck to end up popping that good hair. Most of them you see spend a lot of money and time trying to make it look like Caucasian hair, and a lot of them that you think have done that is actually just a Caucasian mimicking hair hat or a wig that they wear today, and if you yanked it off, she'd have a real short little hairdo that's receding real bad on her head because tying that wig on makes all their edges go away. But I'm willing to bet that these people that he talks about were never described as being a Negroid type in any way, shape, or form, but he wants to pull that off. If they ever notice an Indian, you see the Amerindians that you know about don't really have dark skin, and they call the Redskins and so on, but then you look at all the pictures of them on times, it's like, well, you might have got, well, I mean, they lived out in the open a lot of times and stuff, so they might have got a good tan. But you get a good constant tan, and it'll keep showing red and doing a blushing to your skin and getting an edge like that. But they noticed that some of these had darker skin and not. And you look at the Hopi and the Arapaho and Apache and Chickasaw and all these different ones, and you'll find that they're not a homogeneous type people either. That there were variations on a theme of them. Well, much like Africa, where there's a bunch of variations of different people in Africa. They've talked about how it has this incredible genetic variation. Well, all humanity is supposed to come out of Africa in the first place, so if you get that concept down, then you realize it's the mother of everybody. Africa was named for and by Caucasians, by the way, before it was all called Libya. And Herodotus' map shows you they didn't even know sub-Saharan Africa existed at the time. They're trying to claim all these things about. And you may be aware of this thing because of Cleopatra, but actually they're trying in that movie to sneak in the fact that there were the Caucasian Egyptians. And if you think that's it, it's the Moors. They've claimed Shakespeare, the Vikings, the Minoans, anybody, the Colchians of the Golden Fleece and the Iliad of Odyssey, all kinds of different people, and they're constantly trying to claim we were Ethiopians and stuff that aren't even related to them, and genetics prove it, but they can't stop. But in that same endeavor, they've tried to claim everybody except Eskimos. But then when you find out part of what makes Indians is Eskimos, they're doomed to be claimed by black people who never want to claim themselves. Let's look a little bit more of this.
Also, in the book called Primitive Black Nations of America, Constantine Rafinus points out that the black Indians met the Spaniards in Louisiana in 1543.
I don't know if this is supposed to be Blackfoot or some other variation. And just like people in the old Middle East and so on would take and make a red ochre water and drench it over their body, and we find that iron oxide is an excellent sun repellent, and you see that reflected in their art and so on. But all of the people of the Mediterranean used to have this red ochre males and pale women. But I'm not sure what type of black Amerindian he's trying to put on here, but look at that hair on that person he's trying to put together, but then put behind her an African shield and try to get some kind of lie going on. I don't know if you think the Amerindians have had enough yet, or have been messed with enough and shouldn't have somebody like this trying to encroach on and steal their history. But it's basically everywhere and anywhere. By the way, all North Africa was always Caucasians from the Wayback Machine. Some of those people had E1B genetics, and somebody around 4500 BC or just after went down and found a pre-Neolithic, still extant hominid species down in the Congo. There was no modern human in the Congo. If you look up Acellar Man, it'll show you that the earliest Negroid phenotype of a modern form they find with the bigger skull and taller and all these things is actually Acellar Man at 4400 BC. You'll see some other mentions there, but click on one like Iwo Liru and they'll show you a football-headed, small-brained, still extant Homo erectus type of form that was living in that area that never had any interaction with much anybody. They still to this day also have a 19% unknown ghost hominid, and a lot of people believe that no one else on the world has. You know, kind of like Neanderthal or Denisovans or whatever, but they have their own that no one else has, and a lot of people believe, well, that's that lingering Homo erectus form, showing you it looks like they had actually already been done once at that point, and it didn't take as well as the second time, or sometimes it takes a couple of shots at it here. But they want you to believe that black Indians met Spaniards in Louisiana. And again, if you look over here at the side, it tells you that he's happy for all African Americans who have found their roots. Doesn't matter whether in Africa or outside of Africa. I'm in Africa in the diaspora, and I can't describe my feelings when I go home to I don't even care what. And they're just, they need to stop acting like they didn't already know. So here we get all of these racist comments by blacks and stuff, and they get all hopped up. So you think that somebody doesn't know anything, but that top comment there had 236 likes on it. This just showed up in my shorts, and I was like, oh no, what are they gonna have here? Well, it's only 1 minute, but I guarantee I can make 10 minutes out of it exposing it. Let's continue.
We've always been here. We are the indigenous people.
So his last comment on the way out the door was, we've always been here. We are the indigenous people. So you can see from that where that's supposed to go, just like whenever they claim they were the Egyptians, just like when they claim they're the Moors, or anything else they've attempted over the time here. But lately what's really stuck and shown out is that they tried to claim we was Cleopatra. And of course, if you look at it, it's the loosest possible idea, and no one's agreed upon it at all. In fact, the country of Egypt has outlawed the movie there, and taken me people like Kevin Hart, who was supposed to have a concert in Cairo, and he was all like, we were the Egyptians, da da da, the other people are invaders or something. And they said, hey, take all your tickets back and don't come to Egypt. Not if you're going to be telling this bullshit like that. But lo and behold, oh, we was Cleopatra. There might be something, her grandmother, we're not sure, da da da, but it shows to be incest in the family. And that they wouldn't even breed with the local Egyptians, who were Caucasians, by the way. And so somehow, now here's the leap of faith, somehow a West Sub-Saharan Bantu that couldn't even possibly speak the language shows up. And she gets caught up in nobility of these people that won't even mess with the Egyptians, much less the Nubian troglodytes that are back there to the south that aren't allowed in Egypt. But she just waltzes on in, and all next thing you know, she's married to nobility, and out of all the kids they could have taken, even though hers was first or anything like that, oh, it was Bantu, but then it would be admixed, and then there'd be another admixed. But then they also make Ptolemy black. And then you look at all the supposed Egyptians, and they're all black. It's really self-exposing, and it exposes their cargo cult mentality and lies. And so now we have something that is a topic that we can perhaps talk about. Most people believe that they stepped way over the line a long time ago, but I'm positive that they stepped over the line whenever they insult Egypt itself, all of Greek and Macedonian rule. But what you don't know is, just like this, behind your back, they're insulting all of the Amerindians. They're insulting everybody else, and they love to insult white people.
Indigenous black people have been in the Americas for thousands of years before.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I think that this will hopefully spur a conversation where we can get away from these Michael Jackson video dreams that these people are having, and racist lies that are causing their own problems by their own hands, and building up and getting all mad about something that isn't even true. It's real self-exposing, but eventually it's going to happen some way. And then you wonder how long it's going to continue to linger on. I keep thinking whenever they show the DNA and everything else, and King Tut and this, that, and the other, that there's no chance. You just look into Egyptian art and you're like, oh, okay, yeah. So, well, the red ochre males and pale women, that's just like anybody all over the Mediterranean, Greeks and everybody. We're not confused about any of these people. But they want to pretend that they are in the middle of their claim game. Let me know what you think down below. Peace.